Well, hello, welcome to my room, my quarantine room at the McCure in Perth. It is day 12 for me today. I've just had my second and hopefully final COVID test. That's why I'm all dressed up. For me, clothes have been completely optional or it's been pajamas. I have just really embraced the solitude and isolation that hotel quarantine enables. So yeah, I haven't been dressed like this every day. I've been quite lucky with the McCure in Perth. The rooms are a decent size. I have been able to do some exercise, including some shuttle runs and some HIIT training. I'll show you some footage of that a bit later. And I also have an opening window. Not many quarantine hotels, as you're aware, have an opening window. This one is a tilt opening window. And yeah, it's just allowed some air in. Be able to get that breeze has really made my experience, I think, a lot better than otherwise being in a sealed box. But what I want to talk to you about is the arrival process. So from getting off the plane, through the airport, through immigration to hotel quarantine. Unfortunately, I don't have any footage. They're quite specific. You are not to film, you are not to take photos, there are to be no cameras. So I'm going to have to walk you through it, so bear with me. Now when you land, as you saw in my last video, there's an announcement that yeah, you are going to do 14 days quarantine in a hotel quarantine situation, and that it is required by law. So when the plane lands, there's no restrictions. Everyone just gets up as normal and gets their bags out of the overhead compartment and gets ready to exit the aircraft. On disembarkation, there are people waiting for you at the door of the aircraft, and then you are escorted quite briskly. It is a bit of a march through the airport from the plane to the initial passport control. So get ready for a decent walk. So you've obviously got your carry-on luggage and you walk as briskly as possible to the first checkpoint, which is of course passport control. This is done through the automated machines. So you just slip your passport in, it reads your passport, you get issued with the tag, you walk forward, you put your tag into the machine where the camera identifies you through the facial recognition software that they have, and then you're free to go. Now from there, you walk directly to collect your suitcase. Suitcases are already on the carousel and they are circling, so it's just a matter of selecting your bag and grabbing it, and then you are directed to immigration. So you hand over the form you fill out on the aircraft as normal, to declare if you have any goods that might need inspecting, and to also hand over the card that you used in your facial ID. So you hand those over, and then you're directed through to get your bags x-rayed. Now I have done a fair bit of international travel previously prior to COVID, and I've never had my bag x-rayed, so this was a new experience, but they were x-raying everybody's bag that landed. So then you're directed into a line where you line up, and then it's a simple conveyor belt system where you put your suitcase onto the conveyor belt, it goes through the x-ray machine, comes out the other side, and you're good to go. Just a word of warning with this, the way it is positioned is the screen that the person reviewing the x-ray contents of your bag is visible to everybody in the line. So whatever you have in your bag that might show up, everyone in the line can see it. So if you've got bottles of alcohol or anything like that, they become visible. Just a word of warning. And then so there's no privacy in that respect. Then you grab your suitcase and you're directed around into another line. It's all very easy. Everyone is very friendly, super friendly. There is no rush. It's a slow process. So just take your time, and then you line up to another man, and he tells you to wait. He asks you if you have your G2G pass ready. The lady in front of me did not have a G2G pass. She was pulled to the side and she was requested to download the app and also to create a G2G pass. So she didn't hold up the line, but none of us could leave until the people who didn't have a G2G pass had one and were processed. So it's better, I think, for everyone on the aircraft if you have a G2G pass before you arrive. You line up and then you're called to see an immigration officer. So the immigration officers are sitting behind a raised platform desk that's kind of semicircular, and it has perspex screens all around it. So you're physically separated from them at all times. Of course, you've got a mask on, everybody's got a mask on. When you're called, you go up to the immigration officer. He's very pleasant and asks to see your G2G pass. So I had my QR code on my phone. So I held that up to the perspex screen. He scanned the QR code. He then told me the hotel that we had been allocated, which in our case was again the Mercure Perth, and then asked if I had any questions. So from there, you are spun around, and there are rows and rows and rows of plastic chairs set up for you to sit on, and they're all spaced 2 meters apart. So I was directed to sit down. I was the third person to sit down in the first row. So I sat there. So at this point, it's probably taken 30 minutes to sit down. And then of course you have to wait. So you have to wait for everyone off your aircraft to be processed and to take a seat on the plastic chairs. Once that took about another 40 minutes. Once that process is over, the first 2 rows in our case were requested to stand and were filed out. So I was at the end of that line because I was the first one in. So I was at the end of the line to go out, and we are loaded onto the buses. So there were 2 buses waiting, and because we were the first ones out of the airport, we were loaded onto the second bus. So as you exit the airport, it's kind of out the side towards the back of the airport, and the buses are already waiting. So we get onto the second bus. There is a man waiting at the bus to assist you with your luggage, which I found absolutely extraordinary. And the reason I find it extraordinary is I think it's an unnecessary infection control risk. So he grabbed the suitcases, loaded them onto the bus and stacked them for us. He then directed us to sit towards the back of the bus. In my case, it was more towards the front because I was the third last on the bus at this point. Now, when you get on the buses are running and they're trying to cool them down, but they've obviously been sitting there for a while. So the buses are hot. It's a hot bus. The air conditioner's only just been turned on, and it is uncomfortable. You've also got the sun blaring in through the window. Coming from Europe, you're not used to that. It's uncomfortable, but there's nothing you can do about it. You just need to sit on the bus. There's signs on the bus saying that you must distance from one another, so you need to sit in your own chair. Don't sit next to other people. Keep your mask on and just try and wait. Now, because we were the first out of the airport and loaded onto the second bus, we then had to wait for the rest of the passengers to be escorted out of the airport and loaded onto the bus in front of us. So if you are last off the plane, it doesn't matter. It may even be a benefit if you want to get to the hotel first, because obviously the first bus travels first to the hotel. The first bus to the hotel gets unloaded first and you get allocated your room. So there's really no difference. So we waited for the first bus to be loaded, and then we travelled through Perth to our hotel. Because we were on the second bus, we obviously had to sit and wait again until that first bus was unloaded. All the passengers were allocated their rooms and out of the lobby. So when our turn was called, we got up, you grab your own suitcase. Now, when you're at the hotel, no one assists with your baggage, which I think is a far better system. So you grab your own baggage and you hop off the bus. Now, if you are traveling with a family or you are an individual who's returning and you have excess baggage, don't worry. It's okay. You can use the hotel. So you grab the trolley and you can load your bags onto the trolley. You're not assisted, but there's no rush. It's very slow. Everyone's friendly and welcoming and understanding. They cannot physically assist you, but don't panic. There's no rush. You've got plenty of time to organise your baggage. So you load your baggage onto the trolley and then you line up to wait to be processed. Now, the thing with your baggage is it has to stay with you at all times, and it needs to get with you from the lobby to your room in one go. So you need to be able to manage that. Okay, so you line up. Now, I enjoyed having a chat. Everyone was super friendly and super chatty. So I was just having conversations about the process. One interesting thing that I was told was I mentioned that it had only taken 2 hours from landing to arrival at the quarantine hotel. And I was advised that was due to the halving of the caps, and the normal processing time, or the normal time it takes to get to the hotel, is between 4 and 5 hours. So now that the caps have been lifted, thank goodness, to previous levels, you will expect a 4 to 5 hour processing time from arrival on the tarmac to the hotel. So if you have children, make sure you have water from the aircraft, snacks if you can, and just, I think if you're forewarned, it makes the process a whole lot easier. So when I got up to reception, again, there's a screen between you and the person behind the desk. Everyone is wearing masks. I was handed an envelope with my name and room number on it. So my room had already been prior allocated before I had arrived. At this point though, if you are a family, you can request, like some hotels have suites, which include 1 or 2 bedrooms, a kitchenette, options with, there's no balconies in Perth. There is no quarantine hotels with balconies in Perth, but there are in other states. So you can either request a suite if the hotel has them, or adjoining rooms. Please note, if you get adjoining rooms, there is an extra charge. You pay for 2 rooms, just so you're forewarned. Otherwise, the option is just the family to stay in 1 room. It's not a cheap process, is it? She handed me the envelope. She advised me of my room number. She asked me if I had any food allergies. And that was that. So off I went. I lined up, because when you get into the lift, you get into the lift by yourself. So individuals and family groups are allocated individual lifts. You need to press the button in the lift. Obviously, there have been travellers before you in the lift. I advise using your elbow or using cloth or something to touch those buttons, because otherwise you can have transfer viruses from that lift, from the lift buttons. So when you get up to your room, you just insert, because you're given a room card key, you insert it into the door, and the door opens and you're in. Now, the door is not locked. You can exit the room at any time. You're not locked into your room. You're delivered meals 3 times a day with a knock on the door. You wait 30 seconds, open the door, and you pick up your food. Opposite me is an emergency exit, so I do not have a room directly opposite my room, so there's never any chance of any interaction with another hotel quarantine person. But in other hotels, you will have a person opposite you, and I think they're going to start staggering meal times now, so just to avoid that door opening at the same time and potential airflow. And now I will give you a room tour of my grand room. And my son, who recently quarantined in Melbourne, had a completely different experience. So I'll also show you the comparison between the room that I'm in at the Mercure Perth and the room that he was in at the Mercure in Melbourne. You might get a bit of a shock. Anyway, all right, here we go. Okay, so the note on this pack says only used for the following reasons: relocation of room move, or emergency evacuation. And under there, oh wow, look, we've got a tea towel and some dishwash liquid. In the room, this pack is already here. So there's 24 bottles of water. So here is my poor son's room in Melbourne.
Does it start? Yep. Yeah, sorry, it's a bit messy. My room, little fridge there, TV dude, some stuff, bathroom, window, my epic view, bins, yeah, it just keeps going.
Alrighty, I'm just going to say this about that that video you just saw about my son's quarantine room. I think that we really need to have some continuity in the standard of rooms available to hotel quarantine. The reason for this is that the longer people are stuck overseas, I think we're going to see the emergence of more mental health issues. So when people arrive into Australia, they are very vulnerable and they're very fragile. So if you're going to subject someone to a room like that for 14 days, I think you're asking for trouble. Okay, that person will have less ability to cope. It is like a sealed box. There's no visible blue sky. There's no fresh air. It's just, in my opinion, I think it's unacceptable. There needs to be continuity and maybe hotel rooms that are unable to supply a basic window with a view, even if it is a view of another building in the distance, that's fine. But if they're unable to supply that, maybe their use should be reconsidered. So I have this spray. It's disinfectant spray, 80% alcohol, and yeah, I just spray. Oh, some of my dress is already hung up. Commonly touched surfaces. I know the rooms have been deep cleaned before we arrive, but yeah, just something that I like to do. As an extra precaution. And look, my lovely opening windows on the table. Of course, you can always wipe them down as well. Oh, 2 telephones, feeling very special. And that's nearly it, all gone. So there's not much in these containers, just enough to, yeah, get the job done. Okay.